We would like to commence this event with our first fireside chat. For this, I would like to welcome Abhishek Biswal, Business Head of Airtel Digital, to come onto the stage. Thank you, Abhishek. Abhishek is the business head of Airtel Digital. He has joined Airtel after spending 15 plus years in the several roles across Middle East and India as a product lead, business leader, and entrepreneur in industries spanning construction, travel, real estate, and telecom. Before Airtel, Abhishek worked in companies such as Housing.com and TripVillas. In his past roles, Abhishek has launched global, first, and cutting-edge B2C, B2B products and has scaled businesses globally across both offline and online channels. At Airtel Digital, Abhishek is responsible for heading businesses of Airtel Ads, Airtel IQ, Wink Music, and Extreme Videos, products for Airtel Digital's investments in advertisement, CPaaS, entertainment, payments, and financial services. Along with him, I would like to welcome our CEO, Subra Krishnan, as the moderator of this chat. Thank you.
So firstly, Abhishek, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your time. I think you flew in from Gurgaon. I think since the time we started interacting, and I've known you for a while now, one of the things that's always struck me is how, when we think of Airtel, and we all know Airtel is this behemoth and it's got this 375 million customers and all of that, and that's just one stat I'm throwing out. But Airtel operates at an entirely different scale. For all practical purposes, you've got one USA that you're serving, right, at any given point in time, plus a bit more actually, right? So first of all, maybe it would help the audience here to understand this entire other scale. Right? When we say Airtel scale, that's a phrase that we can confidently use because it means something. So maybe you could start by helping the audience understand that a little bit.
Sure. No. First of all, thank you for having me over. It's awesome being here and sharing this space with so many great leaders. So Airtel, yes, I think from a number of customers' point of view, is a fairly large enterprise, right? We have in excess of 350 million consumers in our B2C business and about 1 million enterprises in our B2B business, right? I think when we look at the scale at which we manage these customers or we interact with these customers, right? You have to look at it from a number of interactions sort of point of view. And that's where the real scale starts, right? So if I look at our digital footprint, which is all our digital channels, we today talk to about 150 million consumers every month, and this is essentially across our web app. So you have 150 million plus interactions there. We get about 200 million walk-ins across our recharge points, which are essentially a point of sale. We get about 3 million walk-ins into all our experience zones monthly. And so far I was talking about monthly numbers, right? In addition to this, we get about 2 million calls a day at each one of our contact centers now. Now what happens is these are big numbers. Yeah, the challenge always for us has been each one of these interactions is essentially a cost to the organization. Yeah, a call sort of costs us about 80 rupees. Now, if you look at, and you mentioned US, I wish we had their ARPUs, yeah, and we would have been happy doing a third of that customer base. But if you look at our customer base in India, our average ARPU is shy of 200 rupees a month. So if a customer calls our contact center once a month, they eat away all the money that we hope to make from that customer. So it's extremely important for us to understand every interaction, predict every interaction, and also shorten the interaction time that we have, right? Now, this is easier said than done because essentially you're looking at trying and understanding the entire customer history in that little cusp of a call that we get, right? So we are picking up data across our CRMs, across every touch point in the last 7-10 days that the customer may have interacted. Yeah, and understand this, also give enough information to the person answering the call in the first 8-10 seconds to be able to answer the customer query, right? So I think this is where the scale really goes bizarre, right? And imagine you are and this must be happening to all of you, right? You've called one of our contact centers, you've asked for a resolution. Let's say it did not get resolved, yeah? And you then walk into the store closest to your house, maybe 2 days later. Your expectation is, I have spoken to somebody at Airtel. I don't care how the store person does not know about it. Yeah, so just stitching this, the story on the contact center, omni-channel across each of these channels that we have, that makes it really large. And that's the scale we try and solve for. So it's not 350 million. It's essentially if we can solve for the 8-10 interactions per customer per month and stitch that. That's the problem, and that's the scale of work that we're grappling with at Airtel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's this, of course, and you already spoke of ARPU and the competitiveness, which I'll just come to in a minute from now. But I think for the purposes of the audience, it'll also be good if we set a context on the B2B side of things, which is the Airtel Digital and the IQ and Airtel Ads. So if you can talk through that, because that will also give a B2B context. We've only spoken about the B2C side. Let's talk about that, and then I will resume the conversation with the ARPU bit.
Got it. Okay. So I think Airtel Digital is a fairly new concept for Airtel. So we are a 25-year-old company, but the digital arm was set up 5 years ago. Yeah. So, and I'm going to start from there. We essentially looked at what strengths Airtel as an organization has built over 15-20 years, right? And clearly network was a strength. We were one of the largest fiber in the ground company. We were one of the largest radio tower company, because that's the kind of infrastructure we had built, right? And in order to build out a digital business, we actually stepped back to see what strengths we have and what adjacencies we can actually play on those strengths, right? And then really understand if those are viable businesses to be built. Can we build those businesses? Do we have the product know-how? Do we have the GTM know-how? And then can we really extract value from those, right? Now, fast forwarding these 5 years since we started digital, we today have a flourishing entertainment business, which is the Wink for music and Extreme for video. We are the largest CPaaS company in India. CPaaS is our programmable APIs for communication. We are the largest IoT connectivity player in the country. There, the good part is there are only 2 other players, right? So that wasn't too hard. We are also, and this is early, we've also started an ads business, which is primarily an audience monetization business, right? So we started this as a very small experiment on, can we own supply, can we own demand, and can we own our own data, right? So if you connect this to our strengths and adjacencies, we looked at network, which helped us create a CPaaS business. We looked at data, that helped us create an ads business. We looked at distribution, which is again Wink, Extreme, and ads, and payments, which is the last thing saying. So if you look at Airtel, essentially there are 4 pillars, which are our 4 strengths, and all our digital businesses are built as adjacencies to them. Yeah. So I have the fortune of managing these 4 digital businesses.
Fantastic. I think this hopefully gives everyone in the audience a very, very good sense of what you deal with on a day in, day out basis, right? So that's a whole other kind of scale. So this, of course, is the internal side of what you deal with, the sheer scale. But I think you touched upon the industry nature, and I think when you look at telecom now for about 2 decades, it started as a fairly fragmented kind of ecosystem. You could say it's an oligopolistic ecosystem. There are 2 or 3 major players, 2 for all practical purposes. And you spoke of ARPU again, right? So, and ARPU is always like this push and pull. There's always this challenge, right? So, in a competitive, highly competitive environment or industry like this, how do you think customer experience acts as a differentiator? Does it in the first place? And secondly, how do you sort of what kind of strategies do you employ on, let's say, a quarter in, quarter out basis to sort of try and stay ahead of the game and sort of keep innovating on the CX side?
So I think we strongly believe that customer experience is the primary driver of growth, right? And we've seen this because we today command more than 60% of the high value customer in India. Right? So, and the reason why we keep calling this high value is it's not prepaid or postpaid. It's just high value customer, somebody who's got a handset which is of high value, someone who's always on, someone who travels, right, has consistency of income. And these are all data points that we collect every day about our customers. I think the reason why we've looked at experience being the enabler, right, and when we talk to our customers, every time you talk to them and you ask them, what is your expectation from something like Airtel? And there's one statement that stuck with me, right? A customer once told me that we think of telecom like electricity and water. It should never switch off. If I'm paying my bills, it should just work, right? And imagine when you get home after work and you're hoping to maybe do a Zoom call or maybe watch a movie, and the internet does not work when you get home. Your expectation is as soon as in fact, even before I'm entering my house, my Wi-Fi should be connected to my phone and it should be working. So the fun part is people only call us or people only remember us when we don't work for them. Right? And it's a tough industry to be, right? And we work hard.
I'm guilty of that too, by the way.
and we got to work very hard so that they don't really think of us as something that doesn't work. So in this space, we go to the extent of measuring calls per customer, right? And we take pride in bringing that metric down month on month. What happens is, and for us, customer experience is an obsession. It's not a metric that we just have to move, or there is a team that works for that. So we did 2 things in our organization, right? One is the mindset. So essentially, there are only 2 teams in Airtel. There is a team that works for our customer, which is all our front-end teams, whether in B2C or B2B. And the second is everybody who works for the team that works for the customer. So essentially, if there is a customer escalation and our front-end team escalates it, it could be to any one of us, and we will prioritize that over everything else in the day, right? So that's the mindset change that we brought about. The second is a process. And our process was very simple. We broke down the customer life cycle to every interaction, every minute, every time a moment of truth happens, right? And we solve for it. So it's the reason why we had to do this, and it sounds very trivial, but it was very difficult because we were a legacy org. We are not born digital. A lot of our processes were still pen and paper. A lot of our processes were send out an email and get somebody to read the email and then action it. If you don't bring about a cultural change in the organization, it's not easy. And I'm talking about 20,000 employees, 80,000 total people working across the country. So that's the fabric that sort of stitches all of this together.
Fantastic. So I think you spoke of 2 things here. One is when you think of establishing a big change and sort of creating that customer obsession, it starts with the culture, absolutely, right? Then you spoke of process, right? And sort of how do you start there, and maybe some kind of organization structure that supports that process and the obsession-driven mindset that you want to inculcate, right? Now, if you get into the nitty-gritties of things, which is now let's go one level down. I think you touched upon legacy systems and paper processes and things like that. And this is a common refrain. This is something that I keep hearing, and I can assure you that many of the people sitting in the audience would empathize with what you said, that there are legacy systems, paper processes, there are in-house tools, there is some kind of data, unstructured data floating around the organization, all of which, for good or for bad, is important, and they're integral to the process. They've been set over probably 20, 25, 30 years, and they're important. So when you think of crafting change at the next level, right, in terms of the underlying digital aspects, workflows, etc., how do you solve for that? What are some of the things, what are some of the learnings, best practices that you can share there?
Right. So I think, so we had two very large issues, right, when we started. We have multiple businesses. So we have, if you look at our B2C side, we have our mobility business, we have a broadband business, we have a DTH business. Very interestingly, the teams are all different, right? And they have CEOs, they have marketing heads, they have their product and engineering teams. Like 5 years ago, everyone had their own product engineering teams. To the customer, they were still Airtel services. Yeah. But for these people, they only did broadband, or they only did mobility, and they only did DTH. We were fragmented to the extent that if you walk into one of our stores which sells mobility and you ask them, can I also get your broadband business? They will tell you, I'm sorry, we can't solve this query. Can you call 121, which is our contact center? Right? So we were fragmented to that level. So what we did was we said we have to solve this in two ways. One is a customer is an Airtel customer. He or she is no longer a broadband customer or a DTH customer, right? So this needed us to make a large change in how we recognize customers, right? And how we sort of, even our underlying CRMs were separate. Yeah, we had to bring that together and ensure we created one customer database which was available to everybody, right? And this is a massive change, remember. One, it's a lot of customers, but it's also multiple organizations, and they're all regulated, right? So mobility is a regulated organization. Fixed line is a different regulated organization, and there's a different regulator. DTH is a different ministry of regulation, right? We had Airtel Payments Bank, which is another different regulator. So just getting this data to create one customer profile was one job that we undertook. And in order to make sure this happens, we once said, let's create one data lake, which has got all of this data, and we will figure out how to migrate from these multiple spaces, laptops, desktops, servers that we have data on, and bring it to one data lake. Second, we also merged our product and engineering organizations. So we said there will no longer be these verticalized product orgs, and they will all be a horizontal. We will essentially move to a platform and federated audience model where customer data is going to sit at the bottom, right? And each organization can use this data, right? And when they use, they will also have to commit back what they've learned from the data and how they've used it. Now, I'm not very good at this, but it seems like this is how the world does engineering. Yeah. Every time you consume something, you also give feedback on how you've consumed it, right? And what is the outcome of that consumption. This allows you to do better segmentation. This allows you to do better targeting the next time. Yeah. So that's one piece, right? The second thing we did was we said, because as an organization, almost always, every new product is at least 2 channels. So if you want to buy broadband from us, irrespective of the channel you buy broadband, somebody will come home to install it. Yeah. In DTH, similarly, every time you have a fault, you will have to call somebody home. Every time you want a SIM, even if you order this online, somebody will come home to do a KYC. Yeah. So we said we will also have to become omni-channel, which is you can start anywhere and finish anywhere on every journey, whether it's acquisition or experience. Both of these jobs actually created a lot of standardization, both in terms of experience as well as the technology that we use, right? And this has given us some very interesting products. For example, we have something called Airtel Black, which is a product of bundling for our customers, right? And we could have never thought of this product if it wasn't for this consolidation.
So I think what is coming out very clearly is, of course, you had, in fact, in your case, I would say it is even more challenging because, like you rightly said, you had completely different regulators across these different businesses, and you could still bring the data together. And I think one of the big learnings that I would probably call out again in case people did not register it is the notion of active feedback, which is if you consume data, you have to give back to the central sort of pool, so to speak, what is happening. You touched about how the data also started getting used, which is the omni-channel nature of the customer experience itself. How do you sort of ensure this on a day in, day out basis? Because you can understand when there is a very specific workflow like you said, a KYC, right? Or installing broadband at your home. So these are workflows that you can still sort of solve for. But when you have a broader set of customer experiences and you still have to stitch them together with this kind of an underlying CDP which we've established you have in place, how do you take care of that?
So I think we simplified some of this, right? And our products are also they're not very complex. It's like we are essentially in a business of need fulfillment. You have the need for a broadband connection, we got to fulfill it, and we want to ensure it works and deliver on any service, right? We have what we've created is a customer flywheel for ourselves. It starts from search to discovery to acquisition of a product to onboarding, experience and complaint management, and eventually the idea is to take every customer and make them a referrer. Yeah, this flywheel essentially means that if we can figure out how a customer progresses from step A to B and then to C, then to D, a large percentage of customers will keep being happy and then become our referrers. Yeah. So what we've done is we've essentially mapped out this customer life cycle across every possible journey and every possible fallout in a decision tree. Yeah. And we keep at it. Right? Every time we have a new use case, we go back to our customer, our CLM, what we call, and we map these journeys out. This becomes what we call our central brain to everything and anything that happens, right? And every feature, every channel, every application will then dip in to see what kind of orchestration is needed for this particular use case. And only then would they go react, right? What happens is you have some large boxes at the bottom, right? You have your customer profile. You have your customer data platform where essentially every trigger comes in and enriches the profile. And you have your journey design or what I call your order orchestrator, right? Essentially now you have a framework which any order can get personalized for this customer across any channel, right? So it took us some time to understand and abstract out this architecture from what we otherwise have built as what we otherwise call siloed workflows. For example, we used to have this online web page where you can come and drop a lead to get a broadband connection, right? So it's a simple web page. You come and select the broadband connection you want, you put in your telephone number, and you then select the address and the time that you want this broadband to get installed. Now, if you don't move from page 2 to page 3, which is the last page for payment, we have your telephone number, yeah? And if you have not paid for, let's say, up to 5 minutes, we'll send you a message saying, your regular funnel drop-off, right? I'm sure I can see some of you nod. All of us have thought of this, right? And it doesn't seem like rocket science. But what if that customer is your mobility customer also? Yeah? And you also want to send them a recharge message at the same time. What do? You want to do that funnel drop-off message, or do you want to do this recharge message, right? So there's a point of decision making. Fortunately or unfortunately, our engineer who built out the web form integrated with the SMS API and kept sending out the message, right? So he was oblivious. He said, I'm doing a great job. You told me to build out a web page. I also thought of the remarketing flow, right? And I should really get a, at least the monthly award the guy should win. Another engineer said that, listen, I sent out this recharge message and another person is sending a message to the same customer. Now I want my message to be prioritized, so please stop sending out that message. Imagine 200 teams each trying to figure out some workflow to send out a message to that user, right? It breaks. This is what we stopped. We said, a customer cannot get a communication if that communication is not registered in the central framework. So think of a reactive data pipeline where signals keep coming about everything that the customer is doing. Yeah? And you then prioritize what is the next best action for that person, not for the internal business use case. Yeah? And what's very interesting is we found out there are some customers we shouldn't market to because they're having poor experience on their broadband. So I don't want to call a customer and say, can you please buy my DTH connection? And the guy tells me that, listen, your broadband doesn't work. Why the hell will I take another product from you, right? So I think I'm, of course, oversimplifying it, but we've realized that just understanding that moment of truth and taking back what we should have done for this customer has helped us build all this.
Got it. So again, I think there's a very natural flow to what you're saying, because in all of this, let's talk CDP now, because that's what everybody also wants to hear and understand, and how are you planning to leverage a CDP in this entire ecosystem? So two things, and we spoke about this briefly. One is the often build versus buy decision, because I know that Airtel at heart, and I've interacted with so many people now, is at heart an engineering company, and there is this tendency, I will build this, right? And so just talk a little bit about the build versus buy thought process. And the second is, how are you envisioning sort of a CDP sitting in amidst all of this orchestration and sort of one view, a lot of which I know for a fact is already created within Airtel. How do you envision a CDP sort of working here?
So I think, Subra, I think it's a good question, especially to me. If you look at the couple of businesses that I run a CPaaS business, which essentially means I make money every time an enterprise sends out a communication to their own customer. So every time you send out a message to your customer, I make some money. Every time you call your customer, I make some money. Every time you send out WhatsApp to your customer, I make money, right? And so on and so forth. There's another set of business that I run, which is essentially our data monetization business. We have 350 million customers active, and another 300 plus million customers who are not with us, but we have enough enriched profiles. We've built social graphs and several points of interest for them. Yeah. So assume I have a workload manager, which is whenever you want to send out a message, you can. I have a set of customers and their data to the extent on these guys are interested in a particular. Abhishek is a foodie. He lives on Golf Course Road in Gurgaon and has recently got paid his salary. Yeah, that is the kind of insight I have. I also know that this person is on his way home from office and is probably hungry. Yeah. Imagine getting all of these signals and storing them somewhere, and then building out an enterprise partnership saying, for your set of customers, I can plan communication, I can plan enrichment. Yeah. The center box that can actually bring all of this together is a CDP. So I think it's natural for us to understand value and work with you guys, of course, for a product like Lemnisk, which is the heart of orchestration for a lot of this business. So if you notice, when I talked about a place where a workflow is defined and every signal is brought in and stored, and then a decision is made on what to do next, that is essentially a CDP, which we've built at scale for Airtel's use. Yeah, and I think maybe because we didn't meet you early enough, we had to build one on our own. But I think while we appreciate technology, and that's the DNA of the organization, we're very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to build everything. I would rather only focus on building the core strengths that we have. And every little dollar that we get, I would put out a radio network or put out a fiber channel, right, outside. So I think for us, prioritization of where we spend comes first. We are a company that does not have, other companies to fund our losses, right? We essentially have to make all the money that we spend.
Really, you have to make money? Wow.
So I think we are very particular and very clear about where our investments will go in, right? And that means that we will not look at building out every little piece of technology. And even historically, Airtel always has been a partner-first organization. In fact, our founder came up with a model where our entire technology was outsourced to IBM on a partnership model where we had revenue share.
It's a huge deal, I remember. It's a big deal. Yeah.
This was the biggest deal that IBM had globally, ever. Right? So I think for us, we are clear what you can buy for a reasonable cost, don't ever build it. Because it may not be core to your business, and if it's not core, you will never be ahead of the curve in terms of innovation. So build out what is core, platformatize it so that several others can build on top of it. Work with these partners rather than build it yourself. So I think for us, when we met you the first time, I think using Lemnisk technology for a lot of our internal use cases, as well as partnering with you guys for a lot of our enterprise use cases, was a no-brainer.
And I think what struck me also, to be fair, was the absolute clarity that sort of percolated down to some of the product teams with respect to pieces that they wanted to own and sort of build vis-a-vis pieces. They said, okay, this is Lemnisk, right? So I think that clarity of thought was incredible to see, actually, right? So you did us a favor by pitching the CDP and sort of making it clear. I will return the favor. There are a lot of B2B leaders here. So how do you plan to extend all of this? Because I think you've spoken of platformization to me once, and how you view everything that you do at Airtel to be something that you eventually see sort of being made available to sort of all of your B2B customers. So talk a little bit about that. What are the things that you believe your B2B customers, many of them here in this room, can expect this year from Airtel? That's sort of my last question. Yeah.
So I think two parts that we are very actively talking to our customers about. So we are in the connectivity business, and we'll keep doing that, right? And of course, I'm sure we work with a lot of the customers here. I think one is our MarTech piece. I think what we've done over the last 5 years with either a contact center technology or the way that we go to our own customers, which is our internal CLM, and the way we interact with some of these customers across our channels. That's something that we definitely want to share with the enterprises. And I'll give you a very small example of what you can use these products for. Imagine you're sending out. I'm in Mumbai, so I'm sure we are a BFSI rich base here. A lot of your customers may be, let's say, on international travel. Yeah. And you want to reach out to them for an important message. You try sending out an SMS and it doesn't reach them. For some reason, you try out a call and the person doesn't pick up the call because they're probably on international roaming and you don't want them to pick up the call, you would rather send a WhatsApp message, right? You can use a single API to attempt an SMS. If it doesn't get delivered, we'll attempt a call. If the call doesn't get picked up, we will send out a WhatsApp. Yeah, so essentially, it's an omni-channel orchestration, saying if event A does not come as delivery of a particular channel, fire event B, fire event C, etc. Right? So this is something that we want to take to market almost immediately. I think it's a very simple, straightforward product. And you know, by the way, guys, this is a product that we've built with Lemnisk, and it uses their CDP technology. It's a very simple use case where we brought together our CPaaS business, the Lemnisk CDP, you know, for an experience use case. Similarly, you can also look at growth, where we can bring in our audience to enrich a set of customers that you have, and then keep marketing. So, for example, if you have a set of customers who are, let me come back to the same example, international travelers, and you want to help them load Forex in their Forex card or in their account, you can tell us, or you can upload your customer base on the CDP. We will use a clean room tech so that, you know, the data privacy norms are upheld. We will tell you every time they're looking to travel or they've hit the airport, and you can then market a particular product. Right? So I think MarTech is something which is something that we definitely want to work with you guys on. The second product line is essentially our contact center or our voice technology. I think that's something that we've scaled significantly, right? And voice is our bread and butter. We've gone to the extent where we now can deliver a contact center voice product with analytics, with sentiment analytics, with text, voice to text. We will pick out buzzwords in the call that may or may not need to be spoken. And by the way, we can do this for all your SIM cards. So if you have a large fleet of employees which are, you know, your workforce or your last mile workforce, and you want to go to the extent of looking at who they're calling on the call analytics, looking at what is happening on the call, yeah, and even coming up with the action required to do the call better. That's all something that can be done. And I give you a very small example of this product. We used to have, so we have about 8,500 contact center agents today. Just to manage these 8,500 contact center agents, we used to have 300 audit agents who could barge in the call. If the call wasn't, you know, appropriate, or if the customer was angry or something, we today have 0. We have nobody to barge in the call. We do analytics on the fly on the call. We do a sentiment analysis. If we look at either the agent being stressed or the customer being stressed, we mark this to the team leader. Our entire training program is driven by just this product, right? So we're now scaling this on every number that businesses take from us. So, yeah.
Fantastic. I think fantastic to hear your views, Abhishek. I think there's a lot that I'm sure all of you taken away from this session. I hope you're doing good on time. How are you doing time? Doing good on time? Okay. Anyone, if there are any quick questions to Abhishek, we can entertain them. Otherwise, we'll quickly close it. And I think we're behind by about 30 minutes and we can catch up as well.
Now the tough questions will come up now.
Yeah. Hopefully none. Any questions from anyone? Abhishek, yeah, Apurva, please.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you so much. I mean, very interesting insights. I'm not sure if you were with Airtel when they launched the campaign where you could report poor connectivity or poor network, and then they would come and assess if the tower could be set up. Very keen to know how did the backend work there, because I'm sure there is a lot that happened in the backend to make this campaign come alive. While we only saw the front end of it, I'm sure there was like an iceberg. There was about 7 layers of it underneath. So keen to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I think this was, I was there in Airtel. It was one of our toughest projects. Gopal said that this year we want to go down to 0 complaints, right? And that was a vision. We didn't get there, but I mean, we had to go to the extent of prioritizing every complaint and understanding if we could fix it, understanding if this complaint actually. So essentially, what we did was we have this concept of prioritization for scale or prioritization for value. Yeah. So let's say if you have poor connectivity, you would have call drops. Yeah. And as a customer, you would be unhappy if you have beyond a particular threshold of calls, right? So assume that you're a customer who's having poor connectivity. You're latched on to a tower which has got several such customers who have poor connectivity, right? So we first said, what is the asset class that we can improve, help, to help the maximum set of customers, and we go and change that, right? Next, we said, what can we do in that asset? So first we said, where do we build more towers? Then we said, how can we reorient our current towers? And third, how can we actually go to the extent of solving at your building level, right? So we created a new generation of towers called small cells. And we today have close to 35,000 customers who have contributed their home broadband to become a tower for their building. Right? So it was a massive project where we had to solve for our network. We also had to solve for the last mile customer who could become and we call them superheroes, right? So they essentially solved for their own set of customers or their own community. So that's how we went about it. So we kept prioritizing what asset class to fix when.
Thanks. Any other questions from anyone? Fantastic. Abhishek, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Abhishek, if you could just stay back for a minute. Thank you so much for this interesting conversation. Great. All right. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Subra.